How do you play over a ballad? How do I play over a ballad? Well, this lesson I'm gonna show you just a real-world example and teach you some lines and concepts on that, right? Typically in my style, we're mixing rock guitar, classic rock guitar, I would say, mixing that up with a bit of Greg Howe magic as always. That's what the channel is about, guys. Alright, downloadable tabs as always for my patrons. Please consider subscribing if you like what I do. And also I'll be using some arpeggios as always in these solos, so make sure you got my arpeggio guide. It's a link in the description. You can grab that for free. It's over 5,000 downloads. People like that stuff. So alright, let's get into the lesson. Here's my solo. Pre-designed solo. I would call this pre-designed. What do I mean by that? I've put on a backing track, I've played a few times and really thinking a little bit, alright, what I'm going to do, what ideas are coming, and just getting used to the progression, right? It's not like a first take improvisation, it's a little bit pre-designed, I would call. It's not completely pre-designed, but I did a few takes, get a little bit used to the progression, to the mood of the song, and then like the fourth or fifth take, bam, it was that solo, right guys? So it's interesting to teach you in that way because it's really the lines or the moves or the pathways that I will always call that are typically apparently programmed in my hands and sounds that I know. So it might be interesting, right? Right, let's go. First of all, the progression itself has kind of two parts as chord movements. First of all, there's a simple 1 to 4 in minor, right? B minor. I'll make it prettier by doing a B minor 9. Right? And so B minor 7 to E minor 7, or B minor to E minor, or B minor 9 to E minor 9 if you want to go a little bit more fancy, but the thing is the same. It's a 1-4 move from a 1 minor to a 4 minor, right? Which happens a lot. Go to YouTube, type in Ballad, you'll find many 1 to 4 movements of chords in minor. Here's the solution. You gotta use B Aeolian throughout, right? Both chords, B Aeolian, very simple, right? You gotta use B Aeolian. The only problem with using B Aeolian the whole time is gonna get boring. So here's my tip that I always do, and a lot of pros do that, is for the 1, we try to stay a little bit away from B Aeolian, but be in B minor pentatonic or B minor blues, right? So we do like just some really strong, kind of more rock, classic rock statements over the B minor. But then when the E minor 7 comes by, I'm switching to B Aeolian, which is the same as E Dorian, just that you know. And then I'm going. So that the listener really hears that kind of switching or gear switching, right, or color switching, going from like standard B minor blues, B minor pentatonic to the B Aeolian or the E Dorian world, same notes, right guys? So that's my first concept, and here's a pathway that I'm apparently using. So right in the beginning of the solo, I'm just warming up, like, right at that moment the E minor 7 comes by, and indeed I'm going B Aeolian, E Dorian. That's a B Aeolian note, this one, right? Back to B minor. Those kind of things. Well, here's a pathway. So because B Aeolian, I hope it's not for you guys. It is, but you you need musical pathways, I always call. So here's one. Still have that image here, it's downloadable on Patreon as well. I think that's a very cool pathway that leads to cool ballad ideas, right? Anyway, that's a pathway that I think is really cool. There's many pathways. Here's one. Right, guys. First thing I want to teach you here is that progression has a second kind of movement, which is this A to F sharp 7, right? From A major to F sharp 7. Thing is, this F sharp 7 is a clashing chord with B Aeolian world, right? So it clashes because A to F sharp 7 is the turnaround, right? It's the turnaround of the progression, meaning we're going back to the tonic chord, which is B. Right? That's what's happening. And it's typically for turnarounds that last chord is the 5th degree of the tonic chord, which is B. Right? And we make it dominant just to add a little bit more tension. Meaning that if you just look at the chord, you'll see that that note doesn't belong to B Aeolian, and that's what we'll typically do to give some attention, right? Because how would you give that note attention? Here we go. First of all, that note simply triggers me to do the good old 2 diminished 7 patterns, right? Here's one. We also know that these diminished 7 patterns are neighboring each other, right? They're moving in minor thirds, which are just inversions of the same thing. And that, so think Ingrid Malmsteen, right? And the second one is, right, this one. And then also there's a nested shape, I would say. The moment we play that note, we can do the other shape, which is on the top 3 strings. Even think more Ingrid Malmsteen, right, guys? So this is kind of the second concept here. Now we need to mix that up with a scale, and I'm always mixing that up with the B harmonic minor. So the real magic happens when you combine that diminished 7, those diminished 7 2 shapes here, with the B harmonic minor. Some people would call this the F sharp Phrygian dominant, but I'm seeing this as B harmonic minor. And B harmonic minor is nothing than a B Aeolian, right? Just with a 7th note, which is 1 step higher. So for me it's pretty easy to see, because I've started my whole first 4 or 5 years playing B Aeolian because I was a Dire Straits fan. But yeah, it's just 1 note different with B Aeolian. For me it was really easy to learn, right? Right, it's B Aeolian, but then with that note, that last note is just next to the root note, right, guys? Here's also a pathway line, because let's leave the theory behind. A pathway line might be this one. So for example, what do I mean by combining? Right, you play that arpeggio and you try to continue, right, so with B harmonic minor notes. So here's a good pathway for you guys to practice. It's a cool practice line, or pathway line, I would call it. The pathway line, guys, is not a lick, it's not a scale, it's something in between for you guys to spark your imagination, right? So, but then you can see how I'm doing, which is just B Aeolian. Then I'm getting ready for that diminished 7. It's really beautiful actually, right? So that's the second concept, guys. Mixing diminished 7 with B harmonic minor, just at the moment that F sharp 7 is coming by. Last concept that apparently I used, so again, it's pre-designed, but I'm hearing lines and thinking, what was I thinking, or what is the theory behind it? Well, there's a moment that the E minor 7 is coming back, and I'm kind of heard this. Some kind of fancy tapping line, but the idea for me was I needed we call a minor 6 sound, right? And an E minor 6 is nothing else than an E minor 7. I'm using, for example, the 5R shape. That's why I think you need my arpeggio guide, guys, to just know those shapes. Well, here's an E minor 7 5R shape. I'm just gonna change one note. That 7th note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, to there. So we have, instead of, we have, right? So that's the E minor 7, E minor 6 sound, right, guys? And here's a pathway line for you. Which sound beautifully over that E minor sound, right? It's an E minor 6 sound. Right, so that's what I was thinking when I was playing that line, guys. Alright, that's kind of the 3 concepts, 3 pathway lines for you guys. The actual lines, solo lines, are on Patreon, as well as the backing track and a little extra lesson specifically teaching you guys that solo lines, alright? Alright guys, everything is also on Patreon for people supporting me there. Shout out to these lovely people here. And then also guys, yeah, just doing that E minor 7 kind of arpeggio 5R shape. If you're struggling a little bit with that, in the description below there's a arpeggio guide for you guys to download as always. If you like what I'm trying to do here, you can subscribe as always also. And then here's a video of mine, like if you're struggling a little bit with the Ionian scale, well, there's a video I've done on the 7 modes for you guys to kind of get your head around those modes in general. Alright guys, see you next time. Bye.